Welcome to Fretboard Frolics. I'm your host, Mikhal Caldwell. This week's show, we're very fortunate to have very, very special guest, one of the most innovative and most soulful guitar players that I've ever had a chance to come across in quite some time. Mr. Vinnie Moore is here to share some insight on this particular playing style, some of the ideas that make him the guitarist he is today, and also we're going to talk about altered scale forms, altered arpeggio shapes to get a little bit more fire into our improvisational techniques. Back with that and much more after these brief messages.
Okay, kids, time to buckle up.
Who said that?
Yeah, who said that? I did.
I don't want to buckle up. Yeah, we can't move around.
Yeah, don't buckle up. But a seatbelt can save your life, and it's the law.
What law?
Anyone under the age of 16 must wear a seatbelt.
But we're only going to the store.
It's not far. Short trips or long trips, you must buckle up.
Okay, we'll buckle up. Remember, everyone, be safe and buckle up.
Hi, welcome back. As I had mentioned at the head of the show, this week we're going to focus our ideas on getting some more improvisational tools to work a little bit better ideas with improvisation. Once again, I'd like to always bring up, and I always like to bring this point to you guys, that improvisation is nothing more than spontaneous composition. That's on the spot composing. If you look at most compositions you'll see now, most of the tunes, most of the songs you hear on the radio, most of the songs you see on MTV or VH1 or whatever you happen to watch, Channel 41, everything tends to come across as a certain idiom of music, a certain style of music. But if you just listen to a lot of things right now, you find that there's so many things that are so similar. So many chord structures have been the same. You can talk about the same chord progression on and on endlessly. A lot of things that you notice, though, inside that chord progression are a lot of things about the songs. You notice that when you hear a solo, the improvisation, whether it be a saxophone, whether it be a keyboard, whether it be a guitar, whatever it might happen to be, a horn of any kind, you'll notice that a lot of times the solos have a lot more fire or a lot more meaning, a lot more thought is put into that than the actual composition itself. That says a lot for improvisational skills and a lot for the technique of improvising. You know, and in doing that, I wanted to also bring across a couple of points that would really help out, I think, the average player and the above average player in lines of thought about getting into the mode of improvisation. First of all, you have to remember that things that you put limits on are always going to limit your playing. Once you learn the specific techniques of music, the do's and don'ts, you'll find out there's more do's than there are don'ts. One of the things that I definitely am going to adhere that thought to today is the fact that you do not have to stick to any particular designated scale tone. We're going to look at that by just taking an example of a basic major scale and altering the scale. Not necessarily playing modes with it, but just altering it around the scale and see how we can use it coming back and forth, remaining in the same key center. For this particular example, I'm going to use the key of A. I'm going to play an A major 7 chord just because major 7 is kind of cool. This doesn't have to be a major 7 chord, first of all. I want to explain that. It's not, no do's, no definite things, you know. I could have made it a major 13th chord, which would have made it the ultimate major as far as you can get to be a major. But I choose to do a 7th today, so. Let's look at some things that would make this chord immediately adherable to a whole lot of different tonal conditions. Number one, we have a major 7. This major 7 also gives us range to diminished configurations of all sorts. We really don't have a limit now on the things that we can do with that. But let's look at it and see what we can do with it besides using that major 7th. Let's take this thing and really tear it apart. Let's look at a major 7 arpeggio to match that, or a subpeggio. A major 7 arpeggio. Now let's look at this, how we can make this thing move chromatically. Let's just use some things and tear it apart a little bit. Let's get into the things that makes this an actual major 7 arpeggio. First of all, we're going to have a root, obviously, and a third. Now, fifth is not necessarily important, so we're just going to skip that fifth and go to the major 7 itself. You hear that gives you the basic bread and butter, the heart and soul of the chord itself. Why? Because the fifth is the dominant position. As long as the fifth is not being altered to go augmented or diminished in this particular example, we don't even have to include it in this chord because the major 7th against the major 3rd is so strong and it's so significant of a major 7 that you don't even really need the 5th in that. So let's look at this again and listen. Let's use our ears for a second. You'll notice that this forms a shape. Okay, we can use this shape, just this shape, to get us around inside that major 7 tonal condition. We're also going to move this along the positions of the major chord. Now what I want to, or the major scale chord, whatever you want to do. What I want to do to get this thing going is I want to start off with the major scale. Let's look at this. We'll just go to the 5th. And look at the shape once again. Why am I playing this minor 7? I'm going to show you. I have a very good reason for this. Instead of going, I'm playing a minor 7 because I can still, I want you guys to remember, minor 7 against a major 3rd would also indicate immediately that you're playing in a dominant position. Why? Because you still have a major 3rd immediate, and a minor 7 is not a particular part, not any specific part of a major tonal group, unless you're playing something really, really out there, really, really different. Not even that different, but just unless you're really playing something that was going to cause you to do some composite tonal conditions. Other than that, it'd be pretty safe to say that a major 7 against a major 3rd is a major 7th chord, and a minor 7 against a major 3rd would be very, 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 very obviously pointing towards something being dominant. Now, the other word you might be looking for is mixolydian, which would be the same exact thing. We're going to look at this one more time so you can see this figure and see why I did this again. 1, 3, major 7. I'll move it to the 2nd. So you can hear how this thing works together. Now by doing this, by accessing that minor 7, the minor 7 tonal condition, I still haven't left my major 5th. All I did was change it to now I have a dominant 5th. No biggie there. But what you should get a chance to see is that I'm stacking 7s. The technique is called stacking 7s. What I'm trying to do is escape the basic restrictions of one tonality and not necessarily make myself have to adhere to some minor 7 or some major 7 tonal condition by just playing a major chord. Now, what I want to do without getting too technical or get you too caught up in something is to just look at the simple shapes that can happen in here. Why am I going here now? To the minor 7, because if you remember, we already included a minor 7. And of course, I could end this with a, it gives me a chromatic feel. So far. So it gives me a feeling of doing some different things with an arpeggio shape. Now, if I wanted to really play those real clean and make them sound really different, I could include a lot of different passing tones in that. But just to keep it very basic, look at the basic positions and think about things that can happen inside of this. Chromatic feel that's happening along with this a lot. Then I'm going to go. There's so many different things I can do inside this, and I'm just using that same pattern. What I want you to see here is that I'm giving it a feeling of chromatism. I'm making it a real chromatized. I don't want it to be so restricted to that particular tonal group, which is why I chose to move it like this. It gives it a whole different feel than just playing a major scale or a major triad moving along on top of that. What I did do, however, is I included that 7th. Let's look at some different ideas that come off of this. Let's take this major scale and expand it a little bit. Let's look at it from the root, I guess. We may as well start from A. We can take the same major scale and make it relate really well, moving it totally across. Now, what I want to do in this particular sense, I want you to see exactly how I'm going to break this up. What you should see here is a major 7, the octave happening here. However, what I want to do is I want to try to go this way. If you notice, there's only one thing changed. What you'll notice is I had a raised 4th or a flat 5 included with a natural 5th. Why I did this, I'm stacking 5ths. The same thing we talked about before. The technique that I'm using today is called blue notes. It's adding another note of a different tonal condition on top of a note you already have. It usually occurs in thirds and fifths. However, you can do this with anything that is relative to that particular tonal condition. For example, the only things that make a major and minor tonality different is the third, of course, the sixth, and the seventh. So you can alternate between those. Any of those would represent, if you're playing like in a major scale and you have a minor third, obviously you've got something minor happening there. If you play with a minor six, you obviously have something minor happening there, or a minor seventh. All these things are different than the major seventh, major sixth, and major third. Taking these same ideas and looking at it a little bit longer, you can see how you can evolve different ideas inside of the actual major tonality without resorting to using modes. Take another look really closely at what I'm trying to get you to see. Now what I'm going to do is involve myself with the pattern that happened here. And give myself the same flexibility that I have if I was playing a Lydian mode without necessarily the restrictions involved in playing a Lydian mode. Listen to this once again. It sounds a whole lot hipper than just going. So a whole different thing, and it'll open up different improvisational things. I mean, if you start thinking in it and taking things back, you still get that chromatic feeling we were talking about. It gives you a bluesy feeling, so let's try to get a blues feeling out of that same line. You can hear all that happens right inside of that particular scale. It's nothing more than a major scale. Not really even being inverted all the way, not really even being torn apart as much as you can. It's just a basic major scale idea. I'm sort of turning it into a Lydian mode. However, I'm not restricting myself to any modal uses because I kept the same key center. In order to make you really understand the mode, I have to start on that mode, to start at that specific interval of the mode to really give you that feeling. But I'm doing all this right in the same key. So it comes across as a real different thing to do. You can do some things inside of it. It's a very, very basic technique, but it sounds really different. And a lot of things you want to do don't necessarily require amazing virtuoso skills to pull them off. It's just a basic idea, something to get you out of the norm, something to get you just interested in hearing different things. It's really, really good to hear different things. Once again, to remember this major seven idea, because that relates to this. And now I'm going to tell you something else, too, before I take this break and bring you Mr. Vinnie Moore back. You know, a lot of these ideas I've gotten, I like for you guys to look up. It's in a Charles Sturnham saxophone book. It's a saxophone, alto saxophone ideas. That's where I got that whole idea from, shaping different things. The reason I'm going to tell you that is because it's always good to look for other avenues for information. You can't always find out things about guitar just by looking on guitar. You need to look at other instruments. They are there. It's only one instrument, really, and that's the person. The human being is the instrument. We are the music. This is just the tool that you make the music on. After that lecture there, we're going to take a brief break, and I'll be back after these messages.
Perfect bodies are the result of careful planning and comprehensive physical health care for every body that moves. A message from the American Physical Therapy Association.
Get government booklets on everything from home repairs to dieting with this free catalog. Just drop a line. Write new catalog, Pueblo, Colorado, 81009.
Hi, welcome back. As I mentioned at the top of the show, we're going to have a very special guest on today, Mr. Vinnie Moore, one of the preeminent guitarists of our time, one of the guys who single-handedly went out and started a whole trend of guitar playing and kind of reverted us back to the idea that we can play simple themes and make them really, really interesting. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce Mr. Vinnie Moore. Welcome.
How's it going, man? Great
really
to be
great.
here.
Really great. I seen you in 1989 at a seminar you did at a high school. You were like really kicking some things out, and I was teasing you, telling me about standards, man. You've always been one of my favorite players, man. You seem to have made a full turnaround, man. What's happening with your music now?
Yeah, my first record, Mind's Eye, was more of a rock, classical type of record. The second record was totally different, more of a progressive type of thing, you know, some classically influenced stuff, but more progressive. And the new record is kind of like back full circle to my roots, the record I would have made when I was like 17. I've kind of gone back to that.
Vinny, I have to ask you a few things because like we got a bunch of guitar players who watch our show every week to hear what these guys have to say. You seem like your technique has like been like always progressing, but maybe your composition skills have like turned. I mean, it's not like they're losing anything, but you've changed style completely.
Yeah, definitely.
happening?
I'm going in different directions. I feel it's important to cover different ground with each record and do different things, because I feel I would be stagnating if I did the same record. You know, if I made Mind's Eye twice, or if the Meltdown record sounded like Time Odyssey. I think it's real important to grow and evolve as a musician. And the new record, I didn't take real serious from a compositional standpoint. Like Time Odyssey, I really sat down and labored over the material and really thought it out, and it was a real introspective record. The new record, it was just a matter of picking up the guitar, and whatever came out, you know, and I just went for it. So as a result of that, it's more of a feel record. It's kind of more from the heart, and more, you know, of an emotional type of thing.
We had a chance to interview a few guitarists who are like we're off the same label you started off on. They both hold you in real high regard. Tony McAlpine and Paul Gilbert.
Yeah, they're
both spoke real
great
highly
players.
of the way you play, man.
Really? No
But
kidding. I paid
most of
them each $100 for that, you know.
Really?
Yeah, man. They told me they were doing your show, dude, and I like sent them a check and stuff.
Oh, yeah. No, but really, man, they said that you were probably out of all of them, they spoke that you were probably the best player as far as like incorporating new ideas.
Wow,
I kind of have to
that's
agree.
a big compliment coming from those cats.
I mean, they really said that. I was thinking though, it seems to me like out of all the shrapnel guys, you sort of hear like there's different labels, and there's a shrapnel label where it's like the arpeggio label. You
Right.
seem to be the guy that steps away from that. As a matter of fact, you're the first guy I've heard in recent years incorporate a crybaby pedal back into their playing skills, man. You're doing
Yeah,
a lot
put
of
some of that on the new record, definitely. I'm playing a little bit more of it live, too. I like to have it set up on the floor, and kind of spontaneously, I'll just kind of turn it on and start going for it.
Vinny, you're one of the guys too I noticed that are doing inversions, like take a particular mode and invert it, all the different ways it can be inverted without making it boring or
Over,
something.
under, sideways, down.
Yeah, I mean, without making it boring. What are some of the things you think about when you're playing? Because the way you play it doesn't just like, duh, I think I'll just pull the bar up. Sounds like you think about things a lot. What are some of the things you think about now that makes the new, because there is a difference in the old Vinnie Moore and the new one.
I try not to think at all. I
Really?
think everybody's crazy but me, actually. No. I don't know, man. I kind of just go for it, and I play things that I feel a lot of times. And, you know, that's what I do when I write songs. I just kind of go for it. You know, I sit around and spend a lot of time practicing and trying to think of new ideas and, you know, kind of experimenting with the tonalities of different modes and stuff. So I guess all that kind of tinkering around and experimenting like shows up. It's there when I go to write songs, even though I don't consciously think about it too much.
What did you ever do to get the chordal vocabulary you have? Like for guys that play in a rock idiom, most guys use configuration of a 1-5-1 chord, not even a third.
I play more like a rock idiot.
No, man, I think you play like a very, very interesting and intelligent chord vocabulary. Your voicing, some
Thanks,
chords.
man.
I mean, they're really funky and stuff and different, versatile chording. I heard you do them at seminars, and I've also heard them on like the last album was like before this, and the one before this, and the second one was like killing it, man. Like you had a few songs in there that was like reminded me a lot of Al Di Meola and Larry Carlton mixed, man, which is like, for me, that's like a super high compliment.
My big thing on the last record was like superimpositions of chords over top of different root notes, you know, like putting two chords or a chord over a root note, and in turn, those two things make one big chord. That I was totally into that on the last record.
Like orchestration and stuff, huh?
Exactly.
Man, so what do you do to keep your technique up the way you are when you're on the road like this? I mean, you got to put a lot of time in.
I don't get a chance to practice as much out on the road as I'd like to, or as much as I do at home. And in fact, like about a week ago, I found like that at a couple of the shows, I was playing good, but I didn't feel like I was playing up to what I should be playing at. So I started really making an attempt to practice, you know, a lot more. And so I've been practicing more, and as a result, I've been playing a lot better on stage. You know, it's really hard at times to find time to play on tour because you're so busy, you're always traveling, and you know, I don't get the quality practice time in that I do at home, and I kind of miss that.
What should we expect from a new album? Stuff after this, are you going to be doing any more instrumental stuff?
Yeah, I'm going to probably always do instrumental stuff, but I want to get a vocalist and do a vocal band. When that's actually going to happen, I don't know. It's a matter of finding the right singer and going for it. When that happens, I'll do it, but in the meantime, I'm just going to keep doing what I do now.
How did the Alice Cooper thing go out, man? Is that okay?
Yeah, I had a blast doing that. I played like 2 songs on the record, and then I went out and did the tour, Operation Rock and Roll Tour, with them here in America. And I had a blast. It was like a nice change for me to kind of guest appear on somebody else's thing, because I've been solo for so long, you know, and it was a nice change to be a part of someone else's vision. And it was a lot less pressure also. But ultimately, I'd rather be doing my own gig, you know. I get to play more and do what I really enjoy doing.
How hard is it for you to keep fresh ideas coming and keep instrumental material going?
There are times when I totally feel inspired and like a song just seems to come out. Like there's a song in a new record called Midnight Rain. In 10 minutes, that song was written. And I wasn't even trying to write a song. I'm just sitting down with a guitar playing, and I come across something and I go, hey, that's neat. And it just kind of came to me. Within 10 minutes, the song was finished and I didn't even realize I was writing a tune. And then there are times when I sit down and try to write, and I can't for the life of me come up with anything worthwhile. So I've given up trying to analyze it, and I've learned that whenever that inspiration comes to you, to capitalize on it and just let it come out. Because there'll be times when it won't come out, so you got to kind of take advantage of it when it's there.
Vinnie, you're one of the few players I hear that are into like playing with the ability to play from an academic level and still the ability to play real physical, that even incorporates a clean tone, which is kind of makes you unique. Most guys, when they test an amp, they say there's distortion work, cut the gain up to 50. But I hear you play things that are real distinguishable, real articulated things. What made that come about? How did you, early on, what were you doing to develop that kind of thing?
Just, you know, doing like physical exercises to play more precise and more accurate, and also just consciously being aware of making every note hearable, you know, and just trying to make things really clean.
You play like really intense without using I'm asking you all these crazy questions because I've been like pressured. Everybody says, you got to ask him this when you get it. What made you stay away from the whammy bar as much as you do? Because I noticed you're not a guy who relies on it, not a guy that's like, without a Floyd Rose and everything else fails, pull the bar.
Yeah, I do that a little bit, but you know, I don't go overboard with it. And I probably in the past I've used it a lot more than I do now. And I don't know why I don't use it a whole lot. It's not really a conscious decision. It's just kind of, I don't know.
If you could give any advice to any aspiring young players, any Vinnie Moore fans, any fans of music anywhere, what would it be right now?
I would say, like, just live music and, you know, be determined and just work really hard and realize that it's going to take a lot of work, but have fun with it. That's the whole thing, man. I do it because I enjoy doing it, and it's a lot of fun. And never forget that reason that you play is because it's fun, and it's because that's what you like doing.
I got to ask you 2 more things that are sticking in my mind. I heard you play a Robin Trower song during your sound check.
Yeah.
And you played it like you lived it at one point. Did you really like Robin Trower a lot now?
I totally lived Robin Trower for like probably a year or 2. Actually, when I was, I don't know, geez, I guess about 10 years ago, actually, I was a total Trower freak, and I used to learn all his solos from the Robin Trower live record, and I used to play that stuff note for note. I'm not nearly as good as playing Trower now as I was then because I haven't done it in a long time, but he's been a big influence. I think he's incredible.
My next question is this. Who were some of the people who inspired you to get you to where you are now, man? What are some of the things that Vinnie Moore listens to?
I grew up on like a bunch of different guitar players, like Van Halen, Robin Trower, Larry Carlton, Al Di Meola, Michael Schenker, Richie Blackmore, David Gilmour, Jeff Beck was a huge influence.
You don't even play like a guitar player to me. You remind me of a saxophone player. The way your lines flow out, the legato, the thought put into them, it's not like pentatonic scale. It's like you play really cool, man. You think about this stuff. You remind me of
Thanks. I haven't like extensively listened to a bunch of saxophone stuff. I mean, I have a record, Cannonball Adderley, that was really cool that I got into. And besides that, I wasn't really too much into sax, so.
What about Holsworth? Does he play an important part of you? Sometimes you have a legato that reminds
that's one guy I forgot to mention, and another guy is Steve Morse. There's probably like 5 or 10 others that I forgot, like Frank Marino.
Mahogany Rush.
Yeah, exactly. That live record was killing. But Holdsworth had a big influence on me. He influenced the way I do use the whammy bar and just some phrasing things And, you know, the guy, he's incredible. That guy's kind of like in his own league.
Vinny, I've seen some of your instructional tapes which were very, very good. What's happening? Should we expect any more of those coming out?
Yeah, I wasn't planning on really doing another instructional video because I did 2 of them and I felt like I kind of beat it into the ground, like that was enough. But I'm out here doing shows, you know, and a lot of kids are showing up and they're saying, hey, I got your videotape and it really helped. When you going to do another one? So it's kind of changing my perspective. I almost feel like maybe I should do another one because there's people out there that were into the first 2 and they're telling me I should do one.
This question is for me. How do you listen to so many people and still avoid sounding like anybody other than yourself? Even in that idiom of like the neoclassical fusion, back when that was really, really, really super strong movement, I heard your voice and it was still unique to you. Like when I heard the other guys, they reminded me of each other, you know? But you kind of avoided that. You kind of like stayed real, real different into that. How did you do that, man?
I don't know. It's not something I really tried to steer away from, you know? I just kind of do what I do and that's about it. I think if you really try to express what you feel through your music, then that'll happen naturally.
Okay, Vinny, thanks for coming down to the show. Next time you're in town, stop in, man.
Definitely.
You guys heard it from the master of disaster, Mr. Vinnie Moore, guitarist of Tomorrow. Back after these brief messages. If you have any questions or comments for Fretboard Frolics, feel free to send them to us here at Fretboard Frolics, 344 West 9 Mile, Ferndale, Michigan, 48220. Hi, welcome back. There was a very, very great interview. Mr. Vinnie Moore is an excellent player, a very excellent player with some very new ideas, a very refreshing type guy to talk to. It's very good to see somebody playing something a little different and willing to go out and take a chance to make the music happen. So, I'd like to tell you guys to work really, really hard. Remember to be creative as possible. Take the idea of the major chord, the major scale, use it. Don't try to think of it as modes all the time. Don't think of everything as something super technical. Remember the patterns we talked about. Remember how they relate together. Everything you hear can be used. Everything you hear, you will hear someone else use. Everything you see here, you'll see somebody use it. If it's not nobody but yourself, you'll see it used. Well, with that, I want to tell you guys, practice real hard. For Mikhal Caldwell, myself, and Dave Lungu, I'd like to tell you guys, make that dots dance on it. See you next week.